What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky with you on a recap Monday. Buck, it was a week where the Jags, you've got a bye, right? So you got nothing going on your end. I've got a Monday nighter. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I caught a nap yesterday. I watched a lot of ball, and then I caught it. It was a Sunday nap. What? I mean, there's nothing better. Church in the morning and a Sunday nap. I was like, unbelievable.
So strategically, when did you take the nap? Did you take the nap
after the morning
before
games?
After the morning game? So you came to the late games. Okay, you got there a little late.
I was a little late getting to the late games. You know, it's an hour nap. It was nothing too much, just an hour nap. By the way, if you're noticing, yes, Indiana did lose. Yes, Rhett Lewis is not on the show today.
Rhett needed a sick day. He needed a sick day. He needed a sick day after the loss. It was a little troubling, so he called in. He called in sick today. So he called in sick. Hopefully he's recovered by late in the week.
Yeah, it was a wellness day. I thought it was a little much, though. I mean, for the bosses to send out the counseling hotline to him, on the group.
It was a lot.
Happened.
I was worried about him.
I think this was actually scheduled, believe it or not. So Red will be back. We'll have a rookie draft coming up. That'll be tomorrow. We got a lot of games to get to, the Buck, and I want to start, first of all, what we saw last night, and that was, I don't want to say JV varsity. That's insulting to the Rams. I don't think this was as much about what's wrong with the Rams as it was what's right with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I want to get to you on this point because I think there's a thread that you'll see as we go through a lot of these teams that are winning right now and playing good football and chasing a championship. It is a blend of speed and power. It is having explosiveness, but also being a physical team. And no greater example of that than what the Philadelphia Eagles put on display last night.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with you when it comes to that. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are a great example. The Detroit Lions are another example of how you have to build your team in what we call an ideal way, meaning what is the ideal team that we can build? And it has to have a combination of speed, power. You got to be able to, I say it all the time, you got to be able to win with force or finesse, meaning you can impose your will with the running game, but also have the firepower on the outside to throw it all over the yard. Because to win games, you have to be a bit of a chameleon. And when you look at the top teams in the league and whatever top five you put up there, they all have the ability to kind of change as they need to put themselves in a position to win against the opponent on that given day.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive, man, and they are on a heck of a run right now, and they are big and they are physical, and I want to get to the offensive line in a moment here. But before we do that, I thought we'd kick off a little early here with Wendy's. Let's get a little saucy nug presented by Wendy's, and that in regards to Saquon Barkley. You can pull out a lot of different stats, a lot of different numbers from this game on Saquon and what he did, but how about this one? Second player since 1950 to have 250-plus rush yards, 300-plus scrimmage yards in the same game. The only other one, Adrian Peterson, that was in 2007 against the then San Diego Chargers. Barkley, 182 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in the second half alone. So it was an impressive performance, and let's go back in time too. By the way, that's an excellent saucy nug. Back in time to the Rose Bowl against USC. Maybe Saquon just likes Southern California, man. He feels very at home out here.
He does, and it's funny you brought up his Penn State success because DJ, when you go back to it, you remember watching him. He was a bit of a boomer bust playmaker, meaning it was 1 yard, 3 yards, 1 yard, 5 yards, 30 yards. 1 yard, 3 yards, 5 yards, 50 yards. That's kind of the way that he was able to put up his production as an ending line. The thing about the Philadelphia Eagles, which is very different from the New York Giants, he's playing with a much better offensive line. He's also playing with better weapons around him. I think part of I would say the impressive part that I've seen has been the consistency, fewer negative plays, more pop, but also the steady string of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yard runs that he's able to produce. I used to think it was something from him stylistically. I'm now beginning to see maybe it was the environment that he played in because he is the running back that every team should want because he has the ability to grind it out. He can make big plays as a runner. He can catch the ball out of the backfield and run all the routes out the route tree. I mean, he is the ultimate running back, and we're seeing it because he's an environment that really showcases his skills because they're so good everywhere else.
I want to get your thoughts on whether you believe the bully can translate from one side of the ball to the other, because this is a Philadelphia Eagles defense that did the same thing. The Rams came out and gashed them. They had a fumble on their
Hmm.
first drive, and then the second drive they go down and score. Like they came out and moved the ball. Vic Fangio made some adjustments, and then I thought kind of the typical play that stood out to me. There was a bunch of pressure on Matthew Stafford from this front. But when N'Kobe Dean just flat out ran right over Kyron Williams on the way to Matthew
Hmm.
Stafford, I thought, okay, this is kind of Philadelphia in their prime right now, which is bully football on both sides of the ball. Hate to see the injury to Brandon Graham. They lose him for the year, who was actually playing great here in his
Hmm.
mid to late 30s, which is pretty remarkable. But they have a bunch of other depth around him. I think you'll see Hunt start to make some plays for them. They've got other
Woo!
pieces. Nolan
That's the
Smith.
bully
That's
play.
the N'Kobe Dean, the bully play that I'm talking about. But do you buy into that, Buck? Because I am a firm believer in when you are a physical bunch on one side, it tends to translate to the other.
Yeah, because you face that every day. And even though like pro practices are not like college or high school where ones go against ones all the time, you can't help but get some of that. So when you're a very physical defense, you have to have a physical offense to complement it. You think about the toughness that is created. DJ, that comes from the trenches. And so as much as we talk about stylistically how they do it, I would say the investment and the trench warriors on both sides of the ball. Something that Philadelphia has done for a long time. They did it with Andy Reid. They've continued to do it. They invest in line of scrimmage players. And because they're so good at the line of scrimmage, they're always able to impose their will. But let me say this, Vic Fangio coming over, people think that you can't coach today's players in an old school way. I disagree. Fangio is a testament to that. People worried about him coming over to Philadelphia after Miami, after some of the players bristled at his methods. He has been the right guy for Philadelphia because he's not only made the defense tougher, I would say that his tactics have made the team tougher and has helped Nick Sirianni gain control of the team and build a different bully. Vic Fangio deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do with a very young defense that is getting after it, not only at the line of scrimmage, but also in the back end.
Yep. And as we move on to the next one, just real quick on the Rams. Look, the defensive front, Jared Verse was still rushing well. Braden Fisk was still rushing well. They have a lot of good pieces. They've got to get better on the offensive line, particularly at tackle. That was a nightmare out there on the edge. That's something that that can be a focus for Les in the offseason. Les has got a lot of good young talented players there, but continue to double down on that offensive line in the offseason is going to be crucial. All right, let's get to San Francisco Green Bay. Everybody's going to take this approach in this game. I want to take a different one. Everybody's going to have an autopsy on San Francisco and how they fell apart. The window's closed. Is Kyle Shanahan, has he passed his prime? All these conversations are going to be taking place everywhere. I just want to focus on two things. Number one, this team is one game out in the division.
Mhm.
Nobody's put them away. Like, you got to knock them out. They have not been knocked out. Nobody in the division's run away from them. That's the first thing. The second thing is, fuck, you can't lose, your
Mhm.
quarterback, your defensive player of the in Bosa, the best offensive lineman in football in Trent Williams, your best route runner in Brandon Ayuk. Like, at some point in time, like, yeah, the well's dry. Like, that's too much.
Mhm.
And McCaffrey, let's give him a little more time to kind of get back into the groove. He doesn't look quite the same as before he got hurt. But to me, this is more about attrition than any type of, exclamation point on the end of the Niners.
Yeah, I would say this. I feel like the Niners will have a hard time this year just because of the Super Bowl hangover. When you pour so much into getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl and you fall short the way that they did in overtime, there's an emotional hangover that kind of lingers with the team for a while. And you can't really get past that until you get into the postseason again. The thing about the Niners this year in the offseason and leading up in training camp, probably more distractions with the contracts and the stuff, never felt like they were fully together. Now you get into the regular season with the injuries and those things. You're playing with backups and young, inexperienced players thrust in more prominent roles than they were expected to be in, and they're not quite ready for that. It's a tough situation, but as you pull out the silver lining, yeah, DJ, they're only one game back. If they can
Nobody's
string
knocked them
off
out.
if they can get two or three wins in a row, they can do it. Now they're a shell of themselves in terms of the heavyweight contender that we're used to seeing, but they're still a dangerous foe because Kyle Shanahan's a terrific schemer. They have really good players, and if they get in, they certainly can do some damage. But right now, they certainly don't look like the team that we've seen dominate the last 3 to 4 years.
I've heard David Ortiz, a baseball player, tell the story about when they were down 3-0 to the Yankees in the playoffs,
Hmm.
and they're playing in that pivotal game 4, and he said, "Don't let us win one game. Don't let us don't give us life. Don't keep us around." And that you know how that ended. So I'm just saying, I think it's a little premature. This team still has a chance to get healthy. And if they're a team that's sneaking in, do you want to be one of these teams welcoming in the 49ers in the first round of a wild card weekend? Like, I wouldn't want any parts of that. So a little premature there. Let's give the Packers some love, though. A team that we've talked about the turnovers and the issues there. This was no nonsense. They just they beat them up. They knew that was a team that wasn't healthy up front, especially on the defensive line, and that was a lot of Josh Jacobs right at you.
So I'm gonna say this again, DJ. We talked about you opened the program talking about like the teams that can mix speed and power, force and finesse. The Green Bay Packers have done that. The addition of Josh Jacobs in the offseason gave them what I call an anchor for their offense. So no matter what is going on with Jordan Love, they always know that they can slow the game down by handing the ball to number 8, and that'll get them back on track. Being able to do that on offense allows them to gain better control of the game when things can kind of get uneasy. And then defensively, defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley coming over, bringing a pressure-based scheme while also keeping vision on the quarterback, more turnovers off tips and overthrows and those things. They are a very balanced team that can get it done in a major way. And I know right now we're talking about the Detroit Lions being the team of the NFC. I'm just saying, man, keep an eye on the Packers, man. They are coming and they're coming fast. And when you think about them and the Minnesota Vikings, there's a balance to the Green Bay Packers that just kind of has me leaning towards the Pack because they have some intriguing pieces on that roster that could really get going in the postseason.
Well, I mean, let me just ask you this, just as we're getting into this. How would you stack them right now? And you obviously the Philadelphia Eagles we talked about earlier. They're no joke right now. The NFC's loaded, man.
It is loaded, and I would stack him as we talk. We can talk about the Lions, then the Eagles, and then I'm gonna still have the Vikings over the Packers until they rematch and play it again. But to me, the Packers are the dangerous team in that because that running game with Josh Jacobs and their ability to create turnovers, that is a huge thing. We always talk about the biggest deciding factor in football is the turnover. The way they can produce turnovers is something that could be the advantage that tips them over all of the teams when we get into the tournament.
Yeah, we get Packers Vikings week 17. So that's a fun division. We said going into the year that was going to be the best division. It is going to be a fun division to follow as we come down the home stretch. It is again though that theme we talk about power, speed, explosiveness. All these top teams in the NFC have those two elements. So it's interesting to see how evenly matched they are as we go forward. How about this? Talk about a wild division. The NFC North isn't the only one in the NFC. How about the NFC West? Arizona, Seattle. This is a game that was just controlled by the Seattle defense. They get a pick 6. Kobe Bryant house call on Kyler. Kyler was not sharp in this game. They can only muster 6 points. Leonard Williams, like the forgotten man. Go back to what he was coming out, Buck. How good he was at USC. He ends up, not sticking there with the Giants. They trade him to Seattle, and kind of a reminder. Oh yeah, he's still really, really talented. They got after the quarterback. 5 sacks. He had 2.5. Boye Mafe's getting pressure. They have a lot of different athletes up front, and then I think Mike McDonald. You get into a new environment, you get into a new surrounding, you're trying to build your roster around the way you do things. I thought give him and John Schneider a lot of credit. They go out and make the trade in the middle of the season for Ernest Jones. Tyrese Knight, the rookie out of UTEP, those are their two linebackers, and they have started to gel these last couple weeks. They are fast. They're flying all over the field. We know about all the resources they have in the secondary, all the talent they have there with Devin Witherspoon and company. But now they've got that middle level under control. So hats off to John Schneider and Coach McDonald for figuring that out.
Yeah, DJ. So on Friday, Scout's Notebook was me kind of breaking down the NFC West race. And one of the things was like, who did you have the most confidence in? The Seattle Seahawks were the team that I had the most confidence in because of Mike McDonald and his ability to get this defense right. When you look at the athletes that they have, it's funny because it's very similar to the way that Pete Carroll operates, but Mike McDonald, to me, might be a little more organized when it comes to the deployment of the personnel. This team can get after it up front. They got talented playmakers on the outside because they can play man to man or zone. And then they have speed, speed, speed at that second level. This is a really good defense. And if they can just play middle of the pack to getting close to playing top 10 defense with the offense that they have, man, they are a very difficult team. And you saw in that environment with the 12s being a factor, some of that nostalgic Seattle Seahawks stuff does pop up. Really dangerous team. Really dangerous team.
Yep, no, they're playing good football right now. Arizona, man, they are just kind of streaky. They are up and down. You don't know exactly what you're going to get from them week to week, but just could never get anything going offensively in this ball game. So maybe that goes back to your trust factor. I think Arizona plays hard. I think they're getting the most out of what they have. I think if you're talking about the ceilings of the rosters, I would agree with you. I would put Seattle above them. And again, though, that's why I'm just saying, as this division kind of hangs in the balance, I'm just somebody's got to put some distance between themselves and San Francisco. I know San Francisco's schedule is brutal. I know they have all these injuries, but still, I just get a little nervous with them kind of lurking, just kind of hanging around, and eventually they might figure it out. So one of these teams, and maybe just Seattle, needs to create some distance here.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And because of the schedule, because when you look at the schedule, here's the thing about the Niners. Man, they have a difficult road down the
Brutal.
stretch. So when we talk about them reeling off a few games, it's going to be hard to stack wins against the opponents that they have coming in. The same could be said for the Rams. And with the Cardinals, I believe, are 1 year too early. The talent is not quite there to win the division, but I love the toughness, the energy, all of that stuff. To me, the Seattle Seahawks are best positioned to just kind of win the division by default. The schedule lines up well. Mike McDonald being able to fix the defense, but it's going to be an interesting 6-week process to watch how this thing plays out.
All right, it's time for Cruising to Victory, presented by Royal Caribbean. And this is a team that I guess it's probably appropriate that when we do that segment, we should always follow it up with the Lions game, because they're not messing around, Buck. They're just handling business, and they're not making things competitive that don't need to be competitive. Once again, they do it here 24-6 over the Colts.
Yeah, DJ, what was interesting to me was listening to Ben Johnson talk about the team and talk about how the offense is perfectly constructed to play a variety of ways. We have talked about, like, when you're building a team, you want to be a bit of a chameleon, meaning that you can kind of shift and morph into whatever type of team you need to win each week. The Lions have that ability. They can become a power football team. They have 2 running backs that are the top upper echelon players in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They have one of the best offensive lines in football, so they can impose their will at the line of scrimmage. And even though their wideouts are terrific with the ball in their hands, they're willing blockers. And so in a game like this against the Indianapolis Colts, where they wanted to kind of beat them up and play a little bully ball at the point of attack, they have the firepower to be able to do it because the roster is built to allow them to play big boy football if they need to, or throw it all over the yard.
I'm just looking through. I was actually trying to find the lines on here, but I would totally butcher it, so I won't do that. But you remember the Ocean's 11 movie when you've got George Clooney and Brad Pitt, and they're talking about, we're going to need one of these. Yep. And then we're also going to need one of those and one of these and one of those. Like, I feel like with the Lions, like, they came in and Brad Holmes said, okay, what does a championship, roster kind of look like? Okay, we need some physical offensive linemen. We'll go get those. Okay, let's get a quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over and is efficient. Okay, we got that going. Let's get some explosiveness both in the backfield and outside. Okay, got that. Let's give a reliable third down weapon in the middle of the field. You know what? Let's get 2. Let's have a tight end and a slot receiver. Like, they've just checked all of these boxes of how you would build a just a nightmare of an offense to deal with. And one of the guys I wanted to give some love to on here, and I know he's had some issues off the field, and it hasn't been the smooth sailing since he got into the league. But Jameson Williams, 5 for 64 in this game, Buck. He's got 16 explosives this year. That's the 22nd most in the league. I think Amon-Ra, by the way, is up near the very top, if not at the very top of the list of explosives. But I went and watched all of his explosives. I'm like, all right, how are they utilizing him? What are they doing? It is a lot of crossers, deep overs, go routes, corner routes, some digs. Like, a lot of times when you look at explosives and leaders, you'll see, you think about like Tyreek Hill Chiefs, or even with the Dolphins, you'll see some shallow crossers, you'll see some bubble screens, you'll see different things where it's just catch and run. Buck, he is down the field, man. Like he is literally the definition of a stretch receiver. And man, think about the value that has not only for Jared Goff with those big plays, but think about the space it generates for everybody else.
DJ, like one of the things about the Detroit Lions offense, and it's probably not talked about enough. I feel like Ben Johnson has done a really good job of stealing some of the more popular plays that Jared Goff ran with the Rams and putting them into the playbook for the Detroit Lions. If you go
Oh,
back and
they'll
think
throw a
about how
dig
Jared
now.
Goff, yeah, you think about how Jared Goff played really well for the Rams. It was a lot of condensed formations. It was a lot of deep overs, crossing routes, things that were hitting on the move. When you look at the Lions, you see similarities in some of the passing game that existed during his time that came with him from the Rams. And Jameson Williams, when you talk about like the benefit of having a speed receiver that can stretch it, it's not only vertically, but it's horizontally. The thing that the Lions are doing, though, is not horizontal, it's diagonal. They're
Yeah.
sending him across
Yeah.
the field and a diagonal,
Yeah.
and they're using his speed to run away from opponents. And they really put you in a bind because if you play zone, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to absolutely kill you underneath. If you play man to man, they can run the speed around you. And if you can't figure out how you want to play it, they just run it right at you. Well constructed offensive line. The playbook and the scheme matches the personnel, which is why they're the best team in football right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you for 1 second. And they have reeled off 9 straight wins, and they kind of a ho hum butt kicking of the Indianapolis Colts. They made that look way too easy on the road there in Indianapolis. Okay, this is one of the more entertaining games of the day. There were a bunch of them in a wild early slate. But Minnesota Chicago to me was the most bang for your buck, and watching two former Trojans go at it there with Sam Darnold as well as Caleb Williams. Let's start there, Buck. Just start with the two
Hmm.
quarterbacks. Impressions on this wild game that went the Vikings' way.
Such a crazy game. Like at one point, it seemed like Minnesota had complete control of the game. The Bears come back, they keep back in, they go to overtime, and then away we go. Sam Darnold, Caleb Williams. Sam Darnold continues to impress. I think Kevin O'Connell certainly he alluded to being really excited about having Sam Darnold in the offseason. I think all of that stuff has come to fruition. He's done a really good job building game plans to allow Sam Darnold to play to his strengths. They have firepower. Oh, hello, Jordan Addison. Way to be the great player that we thought that maybe you could be when you came out of SC. You can see Kevin O'Connell's vision for having multiple route runners on the field at the same time. When you have Addison and Jefferson, just makes the game easy for Sam Darnold. And that's not even talking about TJ Hockenson, who can get it done over the middle. This, too, is another well-constructed team with the firepower to allow the quarterback to be comfortable, to allow him to play within himself while also having the big play potential that you always want to have on offense.
I felt like this was a great example of environment mattering and how maybe we don't take that
Mm.
into account.
Mm-hmm.
And and Sam getting a chance to play for Kevin and all of the pieces that they have on this offense, and all of a sudden he's thriving. And even on the other side, I don't want to take
Yep.
shots at any other coaches, but you've seen the game plan change a little bit and be a little more quarterback friendly for Caleb. And all of a sudden, Caleb playing really well. This is his best game. 340 yards with some of the spectacular mixed in, as you see this throw on the run to Swift, which was, one of the best throws you'll see all season long, was ridiculous. Then the clutch throw late to get him a field goal to push this game into overtime. He made some big time throws. Now, they're still, taking sacks on occasion where he doesn't need to, but you've seen the environment change in terms of how they're utilizing him, and all of a sudden the performance has taken off for Caleb and has shown everybody why he was a top pick. I don't know. I was just watching games on Sunday when you're not at a game, when you're sitting on your couch and just flipping through. I just remember thinking like, gosh, I'm watching Bo Nix and how they're utilizing him perfectly. And I'm just seeing some of these other situations. All of a sudden, Bryce Young, from what I saw early in the season to where they're using him now, and he's got some protection. Like the offensive line's playing a little bit better, and all of a sudden now Bryce Young's playing well. We'll get to that later, but I was
Mm-hmm.
happy for both these quarterbacks. I think both these quarterbacks have taken a lot of heat. Obviously very early for Caleb, but Sam's taken it for several years.
Yeah, Caleb, and I'm gonna say this about Thomas Brown. There's something about Thomas Brown in terms of research in the last couple of weeks since he's taken over, where he talked about he wanted all the coaches to do a little more. He talked and challenged the team to do a little more when it comes to buying in and cleaning everything up and doing all that. I think he's done a really good job with Caleb Williams of simplifying the game. Not necessarily like asking them to do less, but making it very, very clear. I see
Mhm.
more repeat concepts. I see things that are not collegiate like, but they make sense and they're natural building blocks as Caleb goes throughout the course of the game. You can see, okay, they did this early, so now here's the compliment, here's the addition to, and all of those things are making sense for the young quarterback. And make no mistake, because there are people that are down on Caleb Williams right now. The environment matters. We've always talked about the three P's: play caller, playmakers, protectors. They're getting that, but the play caller and the playmakers can make it easier for the protectors. We're seeing some of that happen in Chicago. The only thing that I would challenge Caleb to do is just understand time score situation, when you can hang on to the ball and when you need to
Yeah.
let go of it. But that comes with experience. And the only way you get that experience is by playing. So far, so good the last 2 weeks with Thomas Brown calling the plays. He appears to have a good feel for how to get the young quarterback untracked.
Yeah, and look, he brought him back. Unfortunately, he takes a bad sack on that first drive, but they get a great punt. They're able to pin Minnesota back deep, and the defense couldn't get off the field. And give Sam Darnold and
Mhm.
company credit. He found Hawkinson. He was excellent on that drive, being patient. Had one big play to Justin Jefferson, who wasn't as involved in this game, but I thought the Bears defense let him down in the overtime. But look, it's progress for Caleb. Sam is cooking and rolling in a very, very competitive division there in the NFC North. It's time for Salute to Service presented by USAA. There are over 170,000 military members serving overseas. To commemorate the NFL playing in London, USAA organized a skills competition for U.S. military members stationed at RAF Lakenheath. NFL legends Charles Tillman and Maurice Jones-Drew, our buddy, made an appearance to provide tips and coaching. And thanks to the military members for their service. I mentioned it briefly about Bryce Young and Carolina. I thought we could jump into that game next here. Man, they
Yeah.
gave the Chiefs all they wanted. I tweeted out
Mhm.
after the game. I said the Chiefs just airing reruns at this point in time. Like I've seen this game a million times. Like just let another team hang around. They score. You got under 2 minutes left. Oh, look, it's Patrick Mahomes taking off to run for 20 something yards to get him in field goal
Boredom.
range. Like I've seen this a million times. But let's go where I was talking earlier about Bryce. Your
Mhm.
impressions just on him, and I'll get to what my thoughts are right after what you got here.
DJ, what I'm learning with young quarterbacks, the number one thing that I want to find out when we're going through the process is their toughness level. And toughness, not in terms of physical toughness, but mental toughness. For Bryce Young to endure, it seems like he's already played 3 seasons within this one season. For him to endure benching, come back, go back, come back, and play really well says a lot about his intestinal fortitude. It says a lot about his toughness and his ability to continue to fight through all the noise and all the doubts. Give him credit. He's looked much better the last couple of weeks. Some of the weapons around him have certainly matured and are continuing to evolve. But give the young guy credit, man. He's shown far more toughness than some would give him credit for, because we talked about it being over in Carolina when he's showing that it's
Yeah.
clearly not over. There's not an epitaph on the tombstone yet.
Yeah, a couple things, a couple thoughts here. One, man, there was a big drop pass. I think it was Leggett who had a big drop, but I
Mm-hmm.
thought Bryce played as well as he's played, throughout his young career. They protected him better, and what do you know? Lo and behold, when you get some protection as a young quarterback, you have a better chance to succeed. Especially for a guy who's not big, you've got to give him a little bit more of a clean surrounding, which they were able to do in this game. And Hubbard has run the ball well. Let's get to another game here, Buck. Miami, New England. This was a game dominated by the Dolphins, and we've been saying it on here for weeks. Tua's as valuable to his team as any other player is to their team in the entire league. This is a different team with him.
That's the big reveal, DJ. I think that's the big reveal of 2024 as it relates to South Florida and the Miami Dolphins football team. Before, for so long, all the noise was about, yeah, anybody could flourish in this offense. Look at all the weapons and the firepower around him. All he has to do is get it to the playmakers. We have a chance to see what it's like when he's not there. Look, man, he's the major spoke in the wheel. He kind of makes it kind of go. He's the wheel hook. And when he is at quarterback, his skills as a quick rhythm thrower, his skills as an RPO specialist, the way the ball is always in the strike zone at these short and intermediate ranges allows this offense to go. And with the speed that the Miami Dolphins have, they can really stretch you sideline to sideline with this horizontal passing game. And it's very difficult. It's a unique offense, and I can only tell you how unique it is by watching it up close and personal during the season opener. It's not an easy offense because, man, they make you run from sideline to sideline. It's almost like watching a college offense, but they have elite personnel executing those concepts. And look, the quarterback is elite within that system. Tua Tagovailoa is a top five quarterback in that system.
I was thinking about him in the analogy of like keys. Like there's a master key, right? So you have a master key that can work for an entire complex. It can get you into every room, and so that can work for every team. Like there's few quarterbacks that are the master key that they'll go fit in any room. But there's no mistaking about it. Like Tua is the
Hmm.
key to the Dolphins. Like he unlocks that whole thing. He makes the whole thing go. And we can debate what does that look like. Doesn't matter what it looks like for the other 31 teams. He is the perfect fit to run this offense. I don't think there's a better fit out there to do what they
Hmm.
want to do. And it's a team that's dangerous when he's healthy and in the lineup. They're 5-6. They're clawing their way back into this thing. I do want to give some love to Chop Robinson. They have to find more pass rush on the perimeter. They've just been crushed with injuries really over the last couple years. But he has 1.5 sacks. Both of those, he's double teamed. He's getting chipped by the tight end, beats the tight end and the left tackle. So that was good to see for the young player out of Penn State. Tennessee, Houston. Maybe one of the biggest surprises of the day, although I guess it shouldn't be because the Texans don't look right.
Hmm.
Tennessee gets their third win, 32-27. They got sacked a bazillion times, but
Hmm.
give Will Levis credit, still made enough plays and was able to help get them over the finish line. Their defense took the ball away. So let's start on the Houston side of this thing. Is we look at Will Levis and we'll give him his flowers in a moment. Let's start with the Houston side and what the heck is wrong with this group right now?
DJ, one of the things that I worry about coming into it, the hype around the Texans was so big that I don't know if they had an opportunity to fully settle in year two of the D'Amico Ryan's experience. Meaning, people expected this team to go from being a really good team and a playoff contender to being a title contender. Some of that was due to the names of what they brought in, but what you always have to account for is with young quarterbacks, the more tape that's put out there, the more they're going to be challenged to evolve their game. And as people begun to dig into the CJ Stroud evaluation and what he did really well as a rookie, and as they began to really hone in on those concepts and take those away and force him to play left-handed, how is he going to continue to adapt? And right now he is struggling. Some of that is due to the injuries where he doesn't have Diggs, he didn't have Nico Collins for a big part of it, and some of that is just the natural maturation process that quarterbacks have to go through. But right now, nah, he's struggling. He's struggling right now because teams have really honed in on his game and they're taking away some of the things that he really showed that he liked to do and execute his rookie season. That's why it's harder for him this season as opposed to last season.
Yeah, a couple things on Stroud. Just you can tell he's visibly frustrated when you go through and
Hmm.
watch the tape. You'll see it at the end of plays. And one of the picks, I think it was Mechie. They're not on the same page, so that results in an interception. You can see some visual frustration there. So he definitely is frustrated. The other thing is, I would say there's two F's here: frustration, and I would say frenetic. This is what so impressed me about Stroud last year, to be that inexperienced and to be as poised as he was and to not be busy and frenetic and panicky. This year, that's kind of crept in. And a lot of it, dude, look, the offensive line has not played well, really across the board. Tunsil leads the league in penalties. They get a lot of interior pressure. So they haven't been great up front, but I think you've seen that. You've seen the combination of him getting frustrated, but maybe more concerning is just that sped him up a little bit. He's been a little frenetic.
Yeah, he has been frenetic, and the like being uncomfortable in the pocket. A lot of that has to do with the offensive line, but also DJ, you've talked about it because I've heard you talk about your eyes and feet being connected. And when you have quiet feet
Yeah.
in the pocket, more times than not, the ball is going to be accurate. It's going to be delivered right within the strike zone. We're not seeing that from CJ Stroud, and the reason that stands out on tape is because he's one of the more accurate throwers that we've seen. Going back to his time at Ohio State, early in his career at Houston, this is a guy that consistently paints the corners on the strike zone. He's not doing that this year. Tells me he's not comfortable. He's either not seeing it or he feels all of the rest or the chaos around him. That's something that the Texans have to fix. And to be honest with their offense, it has been at its best when Joe Mixon has been able to get off and have big games. I would expect and anticipate the Texans leaning into the running game more as they try and find a way to get their young quarterback back on track.
Yeah, let's quickly give some love here to Will Levis. I feel like Will Levis kind of a punching bag because he has
Hmm.
kind of some of
Some
those
quirks. Some
yeah, some
quirks.
quirks, but like some of the mistakes are pretty almost like comical for lack of a better word at times. But there's
Hmm.
things you can't deny about Will Levis. Number one is his toughness. Like you watch him as a ball carrier. Look at his arms. He's got bruises all over him every time you see him out there because he gives himself up trying to, fight for extra yardage. And number two, he's got a big arm. There's an offense that works with him, which is a run game and an over-the-top explosive passing game. So it's a pretty simple formula. They haven't been able to get to it as much as they would like this year. Their special teams have
Hmm.
been abysmal, just atrocious all year long. But I think,
Hmm.
look, let's give Will Levis some credit, man. He's tough, competitive, and that's a big win for him.
Yeah, that's another look. We talked about tough being a common denominator. It's been the word that we've used the entire episode when talking to quarterbacks. He does have enough toughness that you admire. It's not always pretty. I mean, there have been some ugly plays from the young quarterback, but look, when he is able to do what he does really well, which is push the ball down the field, when they're afforded a running game, which allows him to throw play actions off the complements, then it really works out. He gets into trouble when it's, I would say, obvious passing downs, and everyone in the stadium knows he's going to pass. And now you're relying on him to kind of play quarterback at a high level in terms of like aptitude, understanding, and diagnosing. But when you're able to run the ball and allow him to take a handful of shots each week, he has the arm talent to be able to get it done. Now he has to take this performance and build upon it as they go forward. The Titans need to see him continue to progress as they envision how they want to build this team, particularly around him going forward.
It's time for Play Football with Max Crosby, presented by New Era. Max Crosby hit the field with New Era to show youth players what it takes to be relentless in the NFL. Check out some behind the scenes from the Pass Rush Clinic, where the Raiders Pro Bowler broke down some techniques that make him one of the NFL's best. Thank you to New Era Cap, the official cap of NFL Sidelines.
What's up, y'all? I'm Max Crosby. I'm here with New Era and Play Football. He's already going to be waiting for me. That's why get off is so important. That was good. Because when you're rushing, you want to win now. Moving. Good job. The best advice I ever got, protect your square. And then I'm throwing this elbow like I'm about to break a brick wall down. It's just about being under control and keeping your eyes straight at the elbow or ball. Whoa! We good? You have to turn into a fighter, and that starts with your hands. There's a counter off of everything, but you want to be throwing the punch first. I'll see you on the field.
Taking a little notes there, Max Crosby breaking it down not just for the youngsters, but for us as well. Some good tidbits in there. Speaking of Max Crosby, the Raiders competitive in this game for a good little bit. It took it down late into the fourth quarter. I give them credit for that, but this was more of Bo Nix. This was more of Sean Payton in a marriage that looks like it's really a perfect match with a quarterback and a play caller, Buck.
Yeah, perfect match. And DJ, I think we've said this, right? We didn't compare Bo Nix to Drew Brees, but we thought that Sean Payton would like him based on what he could see in terms of the similarities and traits that Bo Nix had compared to Drew Brees. And what we're seeing is he does like this. He is building this offense very similar to the way that he constructed the offense in New Orleans with Drew Brees as the centerpiece. The thing about it, the running game was not available against the Raiders because of all the cover zero pressures and all the things that Patrick Graham was doing to take that away. This forced Bo Nix to have to be the driving force of the offense. And even though it has taken him a while to kind of settle in and be the passer that can throw it 40 plus times, really good decision maker, athletic, can buy himself out of trouble. But I would say the best part of Bo Nix's game has been the discipline and the detail that he's displayed as the starting quarterback. We talked about the offensive rookie of the year, and that race will still be determined, but he's not only in that conversation, he's edging past Jaden Daniels because he has his team playing playoff football. And I don't know if any of us envision the shorthanded Broncos being a playoff contender this year.
Yeah, I feel like a baseball analogy that Bo Nix has been able to kind of hit fifth in the lineup here, where this defense is 2, 3, 4. Like they are
Yeah.
getting on base, they're driving in runs. It's taking off some of the pressure from him. And look, this is an offense. The knock on Bo Nix, oh, the ball's out too quick. Like it's this, they don't get deep into progressions and all these things at Oregon, and it's just quick. You know what? That's what the NFL is right now. The NFL
Yeah.
is playing with two high safeties, or they're playing zero looks like you were just talking about. You've got to be able to think quick, get the ball out quick, and move on. And that's what he does really well. He takes a picture in his mind. He sees the field really well, and the ball's gone. He's not going to sit back there and hold it forever. And the other thing is, we talked about the Drew Brees thing, but also some of the Taysom Hill stuff, some of the movement stuff you can do with Bo, because he's a really, really good athlete. So it has been a beautiful marriage there, and what they've been able to accomplish is impressive. I'm going to see the Broncos. They moved that game. It got flexed in a few weeks. I think maybe 3 weeks. We've got Chargers, Broncos, got flexed to a Thursday night, which I don't think that's been done before. So you take a Sunday
I think that's
game.
the first one.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
To a Thursday. And Sean Payton had to sign off on it. He was for it because I think they play the Bengals the following week, and that gives them a little bit of a mini bye to get ready for that one. But that's shaping up to be a big game. So the Broncos have earned the right to be playing meaningful games at this point in the year. And again, I think the lead is really the defense, which has been dominant. And then Bo Nix he might be the front runner right now to be Rookie of the Year. He's right there.
If I am an organization, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I would pay close attention to what Sean Payton has been able to do with the Denver Broncos being shorthanded. With the quarterback situation that you might have on your hands next season, the Cleveland Browns may have to take a page out of the Sean Payton playbook to figure out how to play competitive games with a shorthanded roster.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting offseason in Cleveland. All right, let's get to the Dallas-Washington game. Another bonkers game. This game going on at the same time as the Chicago-Minnesota game. Two nutso finishes. The Commanders have a furious comeback. They end up missing a PAT. There's a lot of special teams magic, a couple returns there for the Cowboys late in this ball game. But they snapped a 5-game losing streak through the Cowboys, and they went 34-26. My first thought on this one, and I'll get over to you, Buck, is we've talked so much about environment mattering for quarterbacks. And what was our big concern with Washington coming into the season was, man, this offensive line, like, how are they going to be any good? How are they going to protect Jaden Daniels? How's he going to play behind a suspect offensive line? Well, they played above their heads for a good chunk of the season. They've lost 3 games in a row, Buck. Jaden's been sacked 10 times in the last 3 games. This is kind of what our fear was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, this is the fear. Like, they're kind of coming back. A few things are happening with the Commanders. One, we always talk about more tape allows defensive coordinators to kind of get a better feel for how to play a quarterback as they get later in the year. We're seeing some of that happen. We're seeing the inconsistencies with the running game and those things. And look, let's be honest. Jaden Daniels hasn't played the same since he hurt his ribs. No one knows how much that's impacting him as a runner and as a thrower. But even in spite of all that, DJ, the throw that he had to Terry McLaurin in the clutch, where he drops that thing in the seam, and then Terry McLaurin just takes it.
He went
distance.
Untouched. 86.
Just a great throw, and it's unfortunate that a special teams gaffe takes away our ability to really put him on a pedestal and give him his flowers in terms of what he's able to do. Look, young quarterbacks are going to have these ebbs and flows that kind of go on throughout the year. But look, he's super talented. And I think the combination of watching Jaden Daniels, watching Bo Nix, and even to a lesser degree, Caleb Williams, it's going to change our eye when it comes to quarterbacks. We used to talk about experience and those things, but man, DJ, I don't know how you can't include experience and starts and all that in the equation when you're beginning to evaluate and project how quarterbacks are going to play at the next level.
Yeah, that's a good point. But that is that's a tough loss for Washington as the Philadelphia Eagles start to create a little gap, a little distance there in the NFC East. We'll see. Hopefully, Jaden get a little healthier. They play a little better up front, and we'll see more consistency that we saw earlier in the season. It's time for Monday Night Football preview presented by Hard Rock Bet. Buck, I'll be there on the call for the Chargers radio as the Harbaugh takes place here. This is the third meeting between Jim and John Harbaugh. A big, big matchup. Monday Night Football. I'm looking forward to this thing, man. I've been prepping for this thing all week and watching the tape, and I was struck by kind of the Ravens West aspect of this thing. So let me just give you a couple scenarios or similarities. Obviously, you've got the brothers coaching the teams. You've got quarterbacks. I think we would all agree, however you want to shake it out, any ranking, Herbert's going to be a top 5 quarterback. Lamar Jackson's top 5 quarterback. So you start with elite quarterback play. Let's go to on the defensive side of the ball. How about safeties that you can play all over the field in Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton. That's a very similar player. We look at young wide receivers, Zay Flowers and Ladd McConkey, guys who can win before, at the line of scrimmage, at the catch point, and can run after the catch. Explosive guys. Maybe not the biggest guys in the world, but very similar. You've got the two 300-pound fullbacks in the NFL, in Scott Matlock and Patrick Ricard. You've got a bevy of tight ends that you can utilize and that can block. You've got first-round left tackles, high first-round picks at left tackle. You've gone into free agency and collected a physical runner. Obviously, Derrick Henry stands alone when you're comparing him with J.K. Dobbins, but they went out and shopped and found that piece. You've got linebackers at the second level who are explosive and fast. Think about Roquan and Simpson. Then you think about Deion Henley and what he's done for this Chargers defense. You've got edge rushers with power and physicality on both sides. Like, these teams are really kind of mirror images of one another.
They are mirror images of one another, which is really impressive in terms of Jim Harbaugh making sure he goes against Joe Ortiz and others from the Baltimore Ravens organization to make sure that everyone in the building sees the game through the same prism. These teams are similar because it's very clear when you turn on the tape, you understand what their identity is. They are tough. They are teams that fancy themselves as the bully on the block. Their combative style can overwhelm teams that are not prepared to face them. And when you talked about the marquee positions that you outlined on their respective teams, DJ, they have blue chip players in those places. The thing about it, and people will talk about, style of play, you worry about narrow path to victory. What if they get behind, yada, yada, yada. With DJ, there's a confidence that they have that they can seize control over any game. I'll say this, though, when comparing the two teams. The Chargers have a better ability to seize control of the game with their defense because Jesse Minter has that group playing well. Even though people will point to the Sunday night game and Cincinnati going up and down the field, to me, I believe the Chargers needed to see that because they needed to have those flaws exposed so they could tighten up. Part of what you want to do over the course of the regular season, have those tough games so you can continue to get better down the stretch. The team that the Ravens will face will be better than the version they saw last Sunday because I would say the exposure and the shootout that they participated in against the Bengals will help them get ready for a high-flying offense in Baltimore that also can do some of the things that the Bengals did when it comes to spreading them out and throwing all over the yard.
Yeah, one key to the game to me is the Chargers getting home with 4. They've been able to do it. They play with light boxes. They've been able to stop the run with a light box, and they've been able to pressure with 4. You've got to do that in this game. Lamar Jackson, in studying this thing, he eats up the blitz. You blitz him, you are dead. He's going to hit big plays behind you, or he's going to crease you and go with his legs. So I don't think this is a big blitz game. I do think on the other side of it, the last thing, and I'll leave you with this, and you can give me your last thought, but with Justin Herbert, the beauty of this system and Greg Roman and the way that they've brought this thing in is I use the Superman analogy, right? Like, they give him a lot of Clark Kent games. Look, there's gonna be 6 to 8 games every year on your schedule where we can win with you being Clark Kent. Like, we don't even have to take the driver out of the bag. We are not gonna screw up. We're not gonna lose the game. We're not gonna put you in harm's way. We can Clark Kent our way to this thing. This is a Superman game. Like, this is, okay, let's go into the phone booth, and you're going to have to make some big boy plays today. You're going to have to be, that elite player. So I think that's kind of the analogy I would use with how they've built this team and what they need from Justin Herbert.
Yeah, that's the thing. And DJ, I know people get frustrated with that, but I kind of feel like Jim Harbaugh, one, being a quarterback, understands the beauty in having a franchise quarterback isn't that you use them for all 17 games. It's 5 or 6 games where you need that franchise quarterback to play at an elite level in terms of like being able to raise the game and kind of put everything on his shoulders. Justin Herbert has shown that ability throughout his time in the league. He's done it. You don't compile the kind of numbers that he's compiled without having that. But in a more controlled environment like he's playing in now, you don't need to use him like that. But this could be the game where you can do it, where you can say, hey, Justin, we're going to have to throw it a little more because they're going to take the run away. We're going to have to throw it all over the yard. Or there's some vulnerabilities in the back end that we can attack. Look for Justin Herbert to kind of put on the cape a little more tonight. Maybe he's that Superman this week that we haven't seen in a few weeks where he has to come out and do some special stuff.
Yep, looking forward to it. We saw it in the first half against the Bengals. They weren't able to keep it going, but I think he's going to need 4 quarters of that play in this game if they're going to knock off a very, very good Baltimore Ravens team. So we'll have reaction to this game tomorrow on the show. We appreciate you guys hanging with us today. It's been fun. It was a wild weekend of football, and glad we could break it all down for you right here. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Move the Sticks.